Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Scotland at 7. I'm Gordon Ross, and in tonight's news, we hear that the Prestwick Airport, which was recently purchased by the Scottish Government for £1, is to go up for sale. Today, the Scottish Government's put out a press release indicating that Prestwick Airport is going to be advertised for sale as the Scottish Government looks to return the facility to the private sector. The airport was taken into public ownership in November 2013 when the Scottish Government paid just £1 for the facility. The airport was initially taken into government safekeeping to basically safeguard the jobs and all the jobs, in fact, and even those indirectly linked to the airport, as well as protecting the facility as a strategic asset. Now, according to the official government press release, an advert is to be placed in the official journal of the European Union inviting expression of interest in the business. The Cabinet Secretary for Transport, Infrastructure and Connectivity, Michael Matheson, said today, "Since the Scottish Government bought Glasgow Prestwick Airport in 2013, we have been clear that it's our intention to return the business to the private sector when the time is right." The senior management team at the airport has continued to engage with potential buyers and investors to discuss proposals for developing the business under new ownership. Now, as part of this, you may remember that Prestwick Airport was also being slated as the site for a new spaceport, and that will also be a part of the continuing business of the airport, and it will be one of the selling points for this. According to Mr. Matheson, good progress continues to be made by the airport to increase its revenue and deliver operating efficiencies and to pursue exciting opportunities in the future, including spaceport. At one time, the airport was planned to have a name change to change it to the Robert Burns Airport by public campaign. So it could eventually become the Robert Burns International Airport. And that's, of course, only if the campaign gets going again now that we've heard that the airport is to be returned, we hope, to private ownership. Mr. Matheson continued, in light of the progress that the airport has made, it will shortly place an advert in the official journal of the European Union, inviting expressions of interest. Any proposals submitted as a result of the advert would be considered carefully before any decision was made to divest our shareholding in the airport or any part of the business. Now, it is a big national asset, this airport. It's not a small operation by any standard. And it is, and has been ever since at the end of the war, Scotland's international gateway and its major airport for connection with North America and flights over the North Pole to other parts of the globe, particularly long-range flights. Prestwick's famous for having clear air and does not tend to suffer from fog as many of the southern airports do. Now, moving on to other news, there has been a response to a government consultation on the fortification of flour with folic acid. Those of you with young families will probably be aware that folic acid is essential to pregnant mothers-to-be to help in the development of unborn children. And launching the consultation today, Public Health Minister Joe Fitzpatrick said that the Scottish Government advocates mandatory folic acid fortification. Since 2017, we've provided free vitamins to all pregnant women, which includes the recommended dose of folic acid. And we know that folic acid supplements are not always taken on time and that many pregnancies are unplanned. And so in partnership with the UK government and all the other devolved nations, we have today launched a joint consultation on proposals for a UK-wide action to address this issue. We look forward to looking at the responses from the public and industry, and we'll take into account all views on the matter. Now, connected with this indirectly was also a statement made in the Dáil in the Irish Parliament about 10 days ago when their Brexit minister was talking about the same issue and that they wanted also to fortify the flour which makes up bread in Ireland with the same vitamin. Unfortunately, in the Republic of Ireland, all the flour which is supplied to their bakeries is in fact from the United Kingdom, and therefore they would rely on the United Kingdom continuing to fortify the flour. And they felt that a no-deal Brexit would prevent that or pose serious problems for the Irish health authorities in trying to obtain the fortified flour from the United Kingdom at the price they get it at just now. It seems that this kind of fortification has been known about for many, many years. It seems to make a lot of sense. In many cases in North America, for example, this is standard procedures to fortify flour with all kinds of vitamins, but particularly this particular one. Now, moving along from the story about flour, we're now coming back to Scottish politics. And we have another press release today from the SNP regarding Ruth Davidson's recent comments on the legality or otherwise of the next independence referendum and who should call it and when they should be allowed to organise it. Now, Ruth Davidson was interviewed 2 days ago, I believe, on the BBC, and was expressing her view that that she could actually change the rules. In other words, she could say that we needed or she said that the SNP would need a parliamentary majority in Holyrood in order to have enough of a mandate to call a second independence referendum. Now, according to spokespersons from the SNP, Ruth Davidson is directly contradicting herself and making it up as she goes along, especially over the referendum mandate, and putting herself on the wrong side of public opinion. Now, this is coming from Keith Brown from the SNP. The Tory leader also claimed yesterday that the SNP needed to win an outright majority of MPs to hold an independence referendum. Now, this is something which nobody has legislated for and has just simply been invented, it appears, by Ruth Davidson. However, Miss Davidson's previously argued that the majority of pro-independence MSPs would justify a referendum, and argued that in 2015 that the UK government should not block any referendum, and now seems to have completely changed her tune. A majority of MSPs support holding an independence referendum already, with the SNP holding a clear and specific mandate from the 2016 election, where the party's manifesto said that Brexit would justify holding a public vote. And if you recall, Nicola Sturgeon was very specific in saying that if we were taken out of the European Union against the will of the Scottish people, then that would be the mandate activated for the second referendum. And also, if this would be a severe enough change in material circumstances to justify holding a second referendum. The other precondition that was mentioned, although it doesn't get as much airtime, was the idea that there should be a significant change in public support for independence. Now, interestingly, although many other television companies are not leading on this story, the fact that there is going to be another independence referendum, and that information has been intimated to the public, has now actually engaged more support for independence than previously, which is actually almost making the second precondition of the SNP for a second referendum come true. Anyway, a Survation poll published this week showed that 58% of Scots believe that the Scottish Government should have the final say over holding any referendum. And this is a poll published in the Daily Telegraph, I believe. Anyway, the SNP's deputy leader, Keith Brown, has said that Ruth Davidson's position is now completely incoherent. She's making it up as she goes along, and she's directly contradicting herself, putting the Tories on the wrong side of public opinion. If the Tories want to compare mandates, then let's go ahead. Ruth Davidson's party got under 12% of the vote last time Scotland went to the polls, and yet she has the arrogance to pretend that she can lay down the law. A majority of MSPs support holding an independence referendum anyway at the moment, and a clear majority of Scots believe that it should be for Holyrood to decide and not Westminster. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm just correcting myself here. A majority of MSPs support holding an independence referendum at Holyrood, and a clear majority of Scots believe that it should be for Holyrood to decide and not for Westminster. Ruth Davidson's stance is fundamentally anti-democratic, said Mr Brown, and she wants to gerrymander our constitution, saying that a vote for a referendum only counts if it's cast by a politician in an SNP rosette. So it's obvious that the SNP is very annoyed about this position, and I suppose not surprising considering the incendiary nature of Ms Davidson's comments. And also in Ms Davidson's comments, she has completely omitted the pro-independent stance of the Green Party as well. It's as if the Green Party is no longer of any relevance at all to Ms Davidson. So it seems that she appears to be making it up as she goes along. Mr Brown went on actually at length and said that it's staggeringly hypocritical position considering the Tories are only in government through a stitch-up with the DUP. And slumped to 5th place across the UK in the recent European election. The SNP spokesman went on to say that it was entirely undemocratic for any politician to stand in the way of Scotland determining its own future, as Ruth Davidson herself used to admit. Finally, on the same subject, just to tie this up, the SNP believes that the Tory party are trying to block a democratic mandate, and that position is utterly indefensible and will ultimately prove to be untenable. The bottom line is the Tories are panicking as they run scared of a referendum that they fear they will lose. This from Keith Brown as well. Now, leaving Scottish politics for a moment, we're now going to move to the subject of Westminster politics, and in particular the very public leadership contest to be the next leader of the Conservative Party. Now this is more information from the SNP and their reaction to the recent contest in which the Tories today cast their votes for members of the Conservative Party who are standing for election, and 10 of them standing for election as the new Conservative leader. The SNP's Westminster leader, Ian Blackford, has warned that the increased threat to Scotland from the toxic Tory leadership contest after hardline Brexiteers dominated the first round of voting is a real prospect. Mr Blackford said that the contest demonstrated beyond doubt that the Tory party had lurched even further to the extremes, keeping the threat of a no-deal Brexit on the table. Now, Boris Johnson, Dominic Raab, Sajid Javid and Jeremy Hunt, the leading contenders at the moment, have all indicated that they would be willing to drag Scotland and the UK out of the European Union without a deal, a position which would risk thousands of jobs and would harm the economy and hit people's living standards for years to come. Earlier this week, a new poll revealed that the SNP would gain more seats across Scotland under any of the Tory leadership contenders. It didn't matter which. Any Tory leadership contender would increase the Scottish vote share in a Westminster election. The Comres survey of more than 2,000 voters for the Daily Telegraph found that the SNP would make substantial gains in a Westminster election, regardless of who the new Tory Prime Minister is. Now, Mr Blackford commented on this. With each passing day, this toxic Tory leadership contest goes on, the threat to Scotland grows. The first round of votes has been dominated by extreme Brexiteers who have indicated that they would be willing to pursue a catastrophic no-deal Brexit, which would inflict lasting economic and social harm. Hardline Brexiteers are storming ahead, and the Tories have shamefully lurched even further to the extremes in an attempt to pander to Nigel Farage and his Brexit party. And now it's yet another sign, according to Mr Blackford, that any new Tory leader will push Scotland towards the Brexit abyss and leave us facing the prospect of an impending economic disaster. The people of Scotland, he said, deserve a choice of a better future than the Brexit shambles offered by Westminster and the Tory leadership horror show. Scotland chose to become an independent European nation and support for independence is set to rise even further regardless of who wins this contest. And of course we now know today that three of the contenders have been knocked out of the race, including Andrea Leadsom. Who else have we got here? I'm just looking further down the list here of who made it and who didn't. I haven't got a full list, I'm sorry to give you, but I understand Andrea Leadsom was one of the three who didn't make it. And I think, sorry, I'll need to come back to this. I don't have all the information in the script to tell you this, but we do know it's now down to a kind of magnificent 7, if you want to call them that, and that will go to a further vote next week before eventually being whittled down to just 2. Now, Boris Johnson, we know, has had 114 votes, more than twice that of his nearest rival Dominic Raab and Jeremy Hunt. So the people that everybody thought would be the front runners in this race have survived, and remarkably Sajid Javid is amongst the top 4. Okay, let's leave the Tory leadership contest for the moment, because we know that it's going to rumble on for a while to come. And not only will it rumble on into next week with MPs doing more voting, but when they have boiled it down to the last 2, it then needs to go to the Tory party membership. I think there's somewhere in the region of 120,000 Conservative Party members in the UK, and it will go before them for a final vote, and they get to select the winner out of the 2 final runners. Now we're moving abroad now to the Gulf of Oman, and the report of more attacks on oil tankers passing through the Gulf of Oman, and which is stoking up security and oil fears. Now this is a report coming from the Reuters news agency. 2 oil tankers were attacked and left adrift on Thursday in the Gulf of Oman, instantly driving up oil prices and stoking fears of a new confrontation between Iran and the United States. It's been suggested in some Arab television reports that I've seen today, including some with animated graphics illustrating where the 2 tankers were hit. It's been suggested by these foreign news companies and news agencies that this was a torpedo attack. Now, this is the first time the word torpedo has been used in any of the news bulletins that I've seen. But looking at the graphics which I have managed to get hold of, and unfortunately we can't get hold of today for copyright reasons, but they suspect that one of the tankers was hit amidships in the centre of the ship, which makes it very unlikely that it struck a contact mine or a magnetic mine. The other ship, which was leading the convoy at the time, which is actually in front of the second ship, was struck in the bow by an explosive device in the water. So I think we can assume at least that the lead ship was struck by a mine, or struck a mine, and being damaged in the bow section is what you would expect if you basically sailed into a contact mine. However, the explosion in the second ship, in the centre, dead centre of the ship, is unusual for contact mine, and according to sources in the Gulf, this is suggesting that there might be a submarine operating in there. This is something which other news agencies so far haven't managed to comment on. Anyway, the White House has said that the President, Donald Trump, has been briefed on the issue after Washington had accused Tehran of being behind a similar incident on May the 12th, when 4 tankers were attacked in exactly the same area, a vital oil shipping route. Russia was very quick to urge caution, saying that no one should rush to conclusions about Thursday's incident or use it to put pressure on Tehran, which has incidentally denied all of the US's accusations. Now, there's been no immediate statements apportioning blame after Thursday's incidents, and no organisations have claimed responsibility for the attacks so far. However, as is always the case in these things, oil prices are nearly always driven up when there is strife somewhere in the Gulf, and that again is the case today. Oil prices jumping dramatically on news of this second, seems to be more deadly attack. I believe both ships were left adrift and unable to manoeuvre. Okay, we just received okay, my office staff are wonderful here, and because we make this television programme using it almost entirely volunteers like myself to man the show, we need donations from the public to help make this programme. And we don't like to ask too much of our viewers, but now and again we like to make an appeal for funds, and this is what we would like to do now. And without your help, we can't make these programmes. Producing television programmes is expensive, and to allow us to continue to make programmes and pay the bills to run the studio, we need more people to sign up to Broadcasting Scotland as supporters. Your £5 a month will help us to continue. So please, if you can, and if you can afford to do so, please sign up on our website. The details are below, but we are at www.broadcastingscotland.scot/register if you wish to help the programme. So we hope that you will continue to watch and also support us as well, and we will be able to bring you even better and more frequent programming. Okay, so we're going to move on now, and there is a little bit more news on this ship attack, and the Arab League has said that some parties were trying to instigate fires in the region without naming any particular party. Okay, we're going to leave this now, and we are just about out for tonight. So listen, thank you very much for joining us this evening, and I look forward to seeing you next week when I'll be hosting Scotland at 7 next Thursday. But from all of us here, I'm laughing here because my studio producer has just informed me that I won't be here next week, because next week on Thursday there is a special programme coming from Dingwall on Thursday night. So I will see you in 2 weeks' time, and otherwise you will catch me in my daily video blog on IndyCar. So anyway, from all of us here tonight at Broadcasting Scotland and the Scotland at 7 team, good night.